And it's like, he's like, dude, I found a skink. Are you sure? And Tony's live response was, yeah, it's biting my finger.
This episode is brought to you by grad dudes who love nature.
You are listening to Urban Wildlife Podcast!
Alright, Tony says Miller High Lights Perfection. We're just getting started, getting our drinks. We're like the drunken masters of urban wildlife podcasting. You might have fabulous praying mantis style, but get a few drinks in us and we'll out-podcast you. So I'm Billy Brown.
I'm Tony Crosdale.
And here we have our special guest host,
Hannah Waters.
In this episode, we're going to look at a couple stories about species that might or might not have been introduced and get into the question of who cares. So let's introduce Hannah. Hannah, who are you and how do you get into nature stuff?
I am a longtime nature lover since I grew up in New Jersey. I am now a science writer, but I've spent a lot of time doing research on shorebirds in particular, a lot of beachy, oceany things, and I don't know. It's just I feel more at home with the creatures than with the human creatures, the non-human creatures than the human creatures.
So why do you live in South Philly then?
I know it's mostly concrete. Although I was very happy just this past week, I for the very first time heard and saw the mating dance of the woodcock right over my home in South Philadelphia.
You had woodcock just playing over your house?
Yes, it was amazing. I've been hearing it calling for a very long time.
When did you have this?
This was just a few weeks ago.
It was...
we were listening to it, and I could not believe it. I played
Tony
the song.
It was not woodcock.
It was not a woodcock. What was it? I saw it do the dive like this.
It was not woodcock.
What was it?
What was it?
Common nighthawks.
Common nighthawks.
Well, that's pretty badass too.
But listen, so here.
That's amazing.
I still am impressed we have nighthawks in South Philly.
Common nighthawks nest on... So here, this is why you're thinking woodcock, right? Because here's their call. That's what you heard, right?
Yeah.
That's
just
not
what
what you heard.
It's like a frog.
This is what you heard.
That's what I heard. Wait. What's that secondary sound?
That's the display. Both these birds, they're both birds that occur in urban areas frequently. Both these birds have an aerial display at dusk that's made with feathers, so that they make their call, and their call sounds very similar. And maybe because they're both crepuscular birds, that call carries at that time of the night in those conditions, you know. But the the nighthawks, they dive down, and that is made with their wings. Well,
I was trying to find a call. I was like, it sounds just like a woodcock, but I can't find a recording of this like wing noise.
So where do they nest? Do they nest in chimneys and stuff?
They nest on gravel roofs.
Gravel.
And that's why throughout the rest of the state, so if you're a bird watcher, it's funny. I would joke about my yard list in South Philly being like really desirable because people will talk about, I had 15 species of warbler, you know, in like their yard that has a stream in it or something in May. But I'll be like, but you don't have common nighthawk and laughing gull on your yard list. And when you live in Philadelphia, because we're the only like coastal plain city, we're right on the river, and we get laughing gulls that migrate up the river feeding at dumps. And they don't occur in the rest of the state. They're a salt marsh species, so they come up feeding up from the bay, or they fly straight across the state to feed the dumps and go back.
Are these ones the blackheads?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool.
And then the nighthawks we have because they nest on gravel roofs, so we have plenty of aeration to breed while the rest of the state.
And these are bug eaters, and they're like related to the swifts.
No, they're related. They're
ground nesters. They're like whippoorwills, right?
Yeah, they're in that group. Yeah,
But they're not. Okay.
Oh, but they don't actually nest.
I'll look them up. Okay, cool.
Either way, yes, I live in South Philadelphia, and if not woodcocks, I get to see nighthawks.
And I think
there.
we've just demonstrated that even living in South Philly, you can get some pretty cool wildlife in your backyard. As I also found out, I did a herping trip to South Philly around 18th and Wharton, and I flipped a whole bunch of brown snakes, which isn't so shocking, but it's just neat to be in like a vacant lot. Not a big vacant lot, and like finding a whole bunch of snakes. We are going to introduce our first guy. When we started thinking about the podcast, we knew we had to have David Hewitt somehow, some way, maybe a lot. And so David in Philadelphia is well known as an urban ecologist, kind of what were we going to say, like a mad mycologist by training. And he gets into all kinds of urban natural history, historical urban natural history topics. He's got a great blog that we'll link to called Growing History. And
he's also like the most humble Harvard PhD you'll ever meet.
Yeah, neat guy.
But he's also got a punk background. Like,
he's got a punk background?
Oh yeah, you never heard us get into this?
No. Well,
yeah,
I have
David's also like a teacher and an educator.
Yeah, he's a professor.
Yeah.
He teaches public classes through the library, which I've taken a couple of them. Really fantastic.
So he'll teach at Penn. He'll teach at libraries in West
Stockton.
Philly. Yeah, he's a neat guy.
He's got his fingers in everything, kind of ecology and natural history
in Philly. Yeah. So let's listen to some David. All right. So we're here with David Hewitt, talking about some maybe really old sugar maples. I don't know how old these are.
Yeah, that
Oakland Cemetery.
Yeah, that we're not totally sure how old they are, but Oakland Cemetery used to be Benjamin Rush's estate.
Where is it? So
it's up just above Frankfurt. It's near North. You know where Northwood is, but it's above Frankfurt in the lower the northeast area of Philadelphia. It's not northeast Philadelphia.
Yeah, for those who don't know Philadelphia, northeast Philadelphia refers to a specific set of neighborhoods area beyond Tacony Creek, basically.
This is like the cardinal direction northeast from Center City, Philadelphia. It's about 6-7 miles out from Center City.
But don't go asking someone where it is in northeast Philly because they'll laugh at you. All right.
Yeah. This area is right nearby to Frankfurt. It's right nearby this area called Juniata Park, Harrogate. And Harrogate actually was like this spa area there. The pirate perch was discovered there 200 years ago as a fish. And so Harrogate...
The pirate perch is a...
Oh, it's a fish. It's not a pirate.
It's not a fish. It's
not a real pirate.
It's not a restaurant where pirates... with seats for pirates. All right,
good. The perch.
Yeah.
And so that area out there, it was a lot of farms.
Yeah.
When, John Adams, when he comes here, he goes out that area, writes about the area out there.
Okay.
A lot of agriculture, between what we now call Center City, Philadelphia, at the time was the city of Philadelphia, within the county of Philadelphia. And there was Northern Liberties in Kensington, and then there was
farms.
A few miles. Yeah, but also a lot of farms, orchards were out there, and also marshland.
And so this is where founding father, physician Benjamin Rush had a property?
Yeah, and so Benjamin Rush had a property out there, and that's now Greenwood Cemetery.
Okay.
And that area, he grew sugar maples. He was an abolitionist. And one of his...
to abolish slavery, he grew...
Sugar maples. Yeah, to prevent reliance on sugar coming in from
slave plantations.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. And so he was saying we should grow sugar maples, and he wrote on this, wrote articles on this.
Do sugar maples do well in Philadelphia's climate?
Oh yeah, they do very well.
I was thinking there's cold.
I see a lot of them.
Do they produce good sap in this
That
climate?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know people have tried to tap them, but I have no idea why. I didn't follow up on that.
Okay.
But I imagine they would. I mean, these ones are huge. They're over 4 feet across. They're very good size.
And this is big for a sugar maple?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly a sugar maple around here. I mean, if you go up in like central New York,
and no one's drilled into them to...
We were going to, but didn't.
Okay.
In part just because you would need a core that was like a 36-inch core, because they're huge. They're really, really giant. And they're beautiful. I mean, they're really nice.
Okay, so that was a neat little snippet. I now am desperate to try to tap those trees and see if we can have the maple syrup that we can thank Benjamin Rush for.
Yeah, well, they do. Fox Cheese Farm, which is
not too far from there.
Right, it's a farm that's Philadelphia owns a couple of properties that actually leave the city limits proper, and part of the farm is in Philly city limits, and part of it is in Montgomery County, but it's all owned by the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and they have a school district site there, and they take kids there and they do sugar mapling. They have a maple sugar day there. So I know that you can get viable sugar out of. You can get maple syrup, and you can make sugar out of the maples in Philadelphia, and you can also use nori maples and silver maples, I believe, as well.
Oh,
Is most of the maple syrup from Vermont or Canada, is that a sugar maple product? Yeah. Right. I wonder if it does better in the cold up there.
I've always assumed so. Otherwise, why don't we have it more down here?
Well, I think it's...
'Cause I love maple syrup almost as much as peanut butter.
Right, but I think it's I love maple peanut butter.
It's a great combination.
Well, I love these little babies. They have the peanut butter maple tarragon ice cream. It's delicious.
You had me until tarragon. But,
No, it's great. It
Okay.
really is. Yeah, so sugar maples, they're like a northern woods kind of tree, like not really boreal forest, but like getting close to the boreal, and like the Appalachians. They occur naturally in Pennsylvania, but I don't think they probably occurred in Philly naturally. But now they do.
So I have a note from one of our fans, resident fans even, who makes a note that Wick House, which is an historic house.
Wait, did you say Wick House?
No, I didn't. But it's a historic house. I think it's in Germantown?
Yes. On Germantown Avenue.
On Germantown Avenue, which is a neighborhood in Philly, does sugar mapling as well, with this explicit historical connection to Benjamin Rush. I didn't know about Benjamin Rush and the abolition stuff with sugar maples before, but now I will thank him. I can't thank him because it didn't work, but I also think of him fondly every time I have maple syrup. So I don't know if Benjamin Rush ever did anything around skinks, but I'll say from the Herper angle, last year there was like big news in the Philadelphia herping world, which I know is only so big, but that someone had found 5-line skinks. 5-line skinks are a common species of lizard, like the name implies. They've got 5 lines down their backs, sort of brown and yellow. The babies have bright blue tails, like a lot of skinks. And so they are widespread, but in Philadelphia they hadn't been seen for like 40 years. But someone found one and sent a picture in to the state amphibian reptile tracking system, which we talked about last episode, Pennsylvania Amphibian Reptile Survey. So someone sent in a picture documenting the first skink in like 40 years at a park on the Delaware waterfront.
Although we know one was found 2 years previously.
And we'll get into that in this clip, Tony. We will hear all about that, about Skinkvicious, the tale of Skinkvicious. So we'll hear all about the skinks with our buddy Mike, who will probably be on future episodes. What's your title?
Michael McGraw. I'm a wildlife biologist and an ecologist.
Tell us about the skinks that you saw.
So, these skink observations started with a colleague's son who is on the Washington Ave Pier, and said he saw lizards with blue tails. And so I got an email, and I just said, hey, if that's true, that's pretty significant. I'm going to look into the heritage data, but I'm pretty sure skink, 5-line skink, hasn't been seen in the city limits in quite some time.
And I was telling you, like, I had heard, this is the kind of thing where you hear rumors. Like, I didn't think much of it, because I was like, oh, it's a railroad tracks in the middle of the city. But now I'm like, we got to check it out.
Yeah.
So
And so I'll say right now that we got to check it out are the operative words here, because all my records so far are from field crew guys, the guys who were doing the ecological restoration work on the pier.
Okay.
And it wasn't until they showed up with photos that I was like, okay, that's a 5-line skink.
So did you see any of them yourself?
No.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
All right.
But somebody in this room does have a record,
Oh, we got to tell the story
a
of
confirmed
Skinkvicious.
record of
The
5-line
story-
skink
the story
in
of
city limits
Skinkvicious.
of
Okay.
Philadelphia.
So
Is that right?
Was I at home, or I think I was at home, and I got a text from Tony.
A call.
It was a call? All right, it was a call from Tony, and it's like, he's like, dude, I found a skink. And I was like,
This is right.
I even
like-
called that the 5-line skink.
I was like, where are you? He's like, I'm in Southwest Philly. And I'm like,
I'm 47th in Baltimore.
and I'm like,
In Springfield.
are you sure? And Tony's live response was, yeah, it's biting my finger. And so I was like, I'm hopping my bike. I'll check it out.
I'm coming.
And sure enough, he had a 5-line skink that we found across from, what, do you know what church that is?
across from some like a big Catholic church
Yeah,
where they're
yeah.
doing a lot of renovations.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, like, I got a lot of friends who live in this neighborhood and they tell me about the brown snakes they see. If there were skinks running around their backyards, I would know about it. And so, like, and so we figured it was...
Well, there was someone who had a nice... In this, we should talk in terms of people who don't know Philadelphia very well.
Yeah.
Well, Philadelphia is an extremely dense city of tight row houses. West Philly, part, all three of us actually live in, has quite a few, like, Victorian twins.
Yeah.
Some single houses even. So there is a significant, yard for a big city. And there was a really nice property there that had, obviously, recent yard work done.
And there was also, this is where we started talking to the guys, I think just later maybe, that I came back and talked to some of the workmen working on the church.
Find out where the plants came from?
Or not the plants, I was asking where they had like these like truckloads of the scaffolding stuff that they were coming, the trucks bringing that stuff in.
Oh, right.
And I was like, where's your yard for this stuff? And they're like, oh, it's in Delaware.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
there's a couple skinks in Delaware.
yeah, so I was thinking, okay, maybe Skink Vicious hopped a ride on a truckload of boards that had been in the yard.
Or could have come in on a root ball of a red bud grown in a nursery somewhere where there's skinks,
Right.
And so I took Skink Vicious into custody. He
Here.
ended up in a nature center in Chester County.
So now that we've interviewed the coyote professor, and he thought my story was extremely plausible, and that that when I call you and tell you that I found a skink,
it was a legit skink.
I actually found a skink.
It's definitely a skink.
So now can you agree now that I definitely saw a coyote, that my sighting was valid?
I'll grant you the coyote.
So what is this about? Is this about vagrant animals, or is this about Tony's...
This is about Billy and I's relationship.
Urban ecological...
This is about Billy and I's relationship. We're going to have a venture together. You got to trust me.
I'm granting you the coyote, Tony. I thought you were going to start making the case that the skinks are breeding and have a population around, like, Chester and 46 or something like that.
No, not at all. I'm just saying that.
Okay. Then I'm not going to fight you on that. Yeah.
So I'm glad that
But now we got these skinks down by the river.
And so I'm glad we're talking about speculation. It's probably a good theme for these skink observations. So again, here we have these skinks. They're in a fallow space, right? You got this whole series of fallow landscapes.
Describe these projecting piers for us.
Did you say phallic?
I did say phallic.
Okay, so we're talking about piers, and so describe a little bit of what the landscape, what the waterfront scape is that you're looking at.
Sure. So it's kind of geometrically aligned. These are all rectangles. Some of them were built better than others, or get more tidal action than others, and so they're wasting away. So they've taken more naturalized shapes, but often it's a hardscaped edge, and then dredged river. So there's not some of that's renaturalized, but essentially what you have on top is broken up concrete and windblown and animal vector established plants. There's a lot of mulberry trees. Yeah. There's mugwort.
Animal vector means bird poop seeds out.
Yep, or deer.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's
transported.
Largely non-native, low wildlife value from a food standpoint, from a structural standpoint, pretty damn critical because it's otherwise a hardscaped, impervious surface landscape. So it's refugia for a lot of things. For example, there's a high density of brown snakes and eastern garter snakes.
I've seen that. Yes.
Yeah, and
well, this area is before your company did all this great work there. My friend Todd, and then I jumped on the bandwagon there. It was a phenomenal migrant trap for birds in the fall, especially.
That's exactly the next thing I was going to say was that the structure and its position in the landscape. It's along a major undammed river system that cuts right up through PA, New Jersey, New York. Yeah. It's a phenomenal migration corridor. So basically, any naturalized landscape along it is phenomenal for birds in migration. And our good buddy Todd exemplified that. His eBird list for that pier and the one just south of it is phenomenal. I mean, it's got.
We're talking, I don't know, birders out there, but we're talking Connecticut warbler,
Yeah.
black-billed cuckoo, all the Catharis thrushes.
Yeah.
You know, like, ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, and then a hurricane comes, and what's been seen from there?
Yeah, Philadelphia's first record of sandwich turn.
Yeah, sandwich turns, storm petrels,
Yeah.
parasitic Jaegers. So, I mean, it's.
Can I ask about some of the more common stuff? Like,
Yeah, sure.
So what hangs out there through the winter? We see different sparrows.
So, well,
Oh, it's a great wintering spot for sparrows.
Yeah, white-throated and white-crowned sparrows,
so I
song
could have
sparrows.
seen a white crown, man.
Oh, absolutely, dude.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
said it was more likely.
I'm looking at the thing and had a plain neck and the white, you know.
That's it.
Okay.
You saw a male. There's no denying it. I mean,
All right,
that's
I
it. You
feel
got a
better.
white crown.
I saw a tree sparrow for sure. I was happy. All right, but so what did your firm do? Like, so you took this.
All right,
this,
so
like, concrete and invasives.
yep.
You know?
So this is an example of a pier that was wasting away.
Yeah.
So
Margaritaville?
in South Philadelphiaville. And so just north of it is an active pier. It's the Coast Guard pier. It's shared with the Philadelphia Fire Department. And just south of it is a larger pier that's well armored. Still has both metal and concrete walls. So this one is old. Quick history on it. I don't know a ton about it, but I know that they call it Philadelphia's Ellis Island.
That's where all my people came in.
Yeah.
So I was out there. I was like, oh,
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. So it has a great history there,
Yeah.
and so it's wasting away. So there's a lot of exposed cribbing, that original lumber cribbing, which is actually great overwintering structure for turtles, such as red-bellied turtle.
So cribbing means like the vertical timbers set into the.
But these are horizontally laid out. It's just,
okay.
It's just a geometric. You know, they're just laid on top of each other. They're essentially the foundation of the entire thing. Back in the day, you know, when was it built? You know, the 1800s,
mid 1800s or something.
So mid 1800s or something. They just laid out this grid work of lumber, and then they just pushed dirt onto it and built mounds of dirt, and then created retaining walls and filled in the thing with dirt. You know.
So what happened to the turtles? Didn't they hibernate in there?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that.
How far back do the nooks and crannies go? Just like if you're down in the water, you're looking at just like something goes in like that, or just like go deep in, like you can't get all the way back in there.
So,
like if you're snorkeling and you had an underwater flashlight.
Because we know people that snorkel with underwater flashlights.
I'm just saying
the Delaware River.
That you could. I got an idea now. Okay, go ahead. Keep talking. So,
Wait, hold up.
So,
at some point, we have to address in this podcast that Billy snorkels for turtles. Why did you name your daughter Emmy?
That's a good question.
With a Y.
Because I was not the only person naming my daughter. But look, we picked a floral element anyway. You know, like it wasn't like we named her after a rock
And by the way,
or a biblical name, a magnolia work. Right?
So you guys know, Billy and Mike, I introduced because they need to hang out with each other because they're the two single father herpetologists that I know. And Billy's daughter's named Magnolia, and Mike's daughter's named Layla Magnolia.
And we did not coordinate this at all.
Not whatsoever.
That's just how badass we are. So you guys took this pier that was falling apart.
Yeah.
And had a whole basically broken concrete and a whole bunch of trash plants on top.
Our work was essentially to design and build a new pier.
Yeah.
You know, budget was a limiting factor. We had some big ideas. I had some really big ideas about tidal, freshwater estuarine, restoration stuff, because you have two coves, and one of them we did bathymetry. One,
you did the what?
Bathymetry.
Do tell.
So it's just a study of the depth of the how much what's the underwater topography.
Did you use bathyspheres for your bathymetry?
So we learned
they've advanced beyond that these days in technology.
Some areas there's been a lot of sedimentation, and there's almost a mud flat during the lowest tides in the South Cove, which is pretty interesting. It's like literally just a sheen of water at the lowest tides for the sludge area. So I'm like, we need to be planting pickerelweed and arrow arum and other sagittate leafed plants, and get an emergent wetland system going.
Yeah.
It's already, right now it provides minimal habitat for waterfowl. The cribbing and stuff provides like a little bit of hide structure, and there's definitely some fish. There's only one native aquatic plant species that tends to set up and it establishes and then gets beats up by wave action. So we find like broken bits here and there, but it's no successful stuff. Anyway, I'm being long-winded. Yeah. The budget was a limiting factor, so we didn't do a lot of in-water work, you know. So we essentially focused on the terra firma. We did some soils analysis. Most of the soil, all the soil is non-native, And
it was dredged in it was hauled in from somewhere else.
Some was dredged, but a lot of it was just from South Philly from the 1800s, like just moving dirt.
Yeah.
And then crushed buildings. There's a lot of brick.
It's fill.
Yeah. But urban fill, which is different from farmland fill.
Good point.
Were these bricks from houses?
Yeah, there's bricks from houses.
House.
And so when those bricks break down, there's was it calcium carbonate? So there's some soil, there's some nutrients in the soil.
Okay.
Yeah. So we didn't do much for soil amendments, but there were soil analyses done. I leaned on Todd, who's a phenomenal birder, who shared with me his birding records, just to try and see if we could isolate any particular birds that are moving through that might be better off, that are of interest from a rarity perspective or a regional ecosystem perspective that could benefit from structural vegetative plantings beyond what we were already planning, essentially.
So you could tailor what you're planning to.
Yeah, exactly.
To benefit the
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds. May I ask a question here?
Sure.
I don't want to derail you, but so as a birder with a bit of horticulture background, and I used to live in South Philly and bird this area with Todd, and I got stopped by Coast Guard and a Homeland Security guy birding with Todd when they first opened the trail up because they thought we were well-dressed terrorists. Well, Todd was a well-dressed terrorist. I look like a scumbag.
I'm going to say, how well-dressed were you, Tony?
I was wearing a camouflage
cut-off sleeve punk shirt.
Yeah. Oh my god, the Homeland Security guy like straight up looked like he had like a 3/4 like leather jacket, like slick back hair. He was like total like South Philly like knee breaker. It was cool. But anyway, so we were so one thing we noticed was there's a series of piers. I mean, this area isn't just one pier; it's a whole bunch of piers.
Right.
And there's like no man's lands, brown fields, and we go bird there, and it's mostly like Paulownia, Atlantis, mugwort, goldenrod fields, and
nothing special.
Yeah, but there's structure there, right? And so it's great for migrants, but I noticed that...
Hold on. Well, let's not say it's great for migrants. Migrants touch down and move through there, so it's a great place to observe migrants, but what is the value from a dietary perspective?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, and obviously this is...
So that's what they're planning.
That's what that's what I'm studying in grad school is what birds eat.
And that's what we're applying.
Right. But, and your company is, on point with this. So I'm about to lead to a question. My question is, I saw an area that wasn't your company's work, and they denuded the understory completely, and just planted plugs of natives, and we were like, oh my god, like invasives, they're like there could be higher nutritional value, either the fruits they produce or the insects on them of natives, but if you completely take away the understory, then you're gonna all the understory birds are not gonna be able to be there. So what I'm asking,
define understory. Shrub layer?
Shrub and herbaceous layer.
So, technically the herbaceous layer is the ground story. right? We're going to say the things that are just basically the fuzz on the ground.
Well, here's my question.
Yeah.
How did your company? What was your strategy for? For your vegetation plantings? Did you just completely
nuke the whole site
and then put stuff, or did you leave structure?
We left the mulberry
even
trees.
if it was invasive.
We did. We ended up leaving some mulberry trees there, but you're talking about the understory.
Yeah.
Here's the deal with ecological restoration. What you're essentially doing is consciously creating disturbance, and then you're guiding the successional reestablishment of plants. There's very few ecosystems on the planet that don't have some evolved strategies for responding to disturbance. The disturbance needs to be appropriate. For example, in the tropics, a hurricane will rip through and snap the tallest trees, or lianas will pull down one or two trees, leaving these small spaces. And in those small spaces, you get the highest diversity of plant regrowth because the plants in that area have evolved to these small-scale disturbances. In the boreal forest, a wildfire sweeps through and takes out 300,000 acres. And it's
I've been there.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
I've been there.
I did field research in it.
Cheers to
in
that.
June.
We're drinking, by the way. That's how we roll.
Hence
supposed
the
to give up all
background.
the
to bore forest disturbance via fire.
Yeah, so I just did bird studies and veg studies in an area that burned 6 years ago, upland boreal forest in northern Minnesota. And
Whatever wimp. I was in a boreal forest that was actively burning, and the amphibious planes were landing and taking on water and fighting it. I couldn't even do field work because there was so much smoke.
Well, see,
All right,
who's a wimp? You weren't doing your field work while it was burning. I was radio tracking pine snakes right behind an active fire in the Pine Barrens 6 years ago.
I'm a burly dude. Mike McGraw is as burly as they come.
Oh, you're gonna make my Irish cheeks blush.
All right,
But-
so you're replanting on the pier.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, so just back to the disturbance thing. Here's the deal with that. We have a network, like you had stated. This was Pier 53.
No.
That's one of many, many, many piers throughout this contiguous fallow landscape along the eastern
And so many
the
of them
western
look
shore
just like
of
that.
the Delaware River. And so many look just like that. So to entirely nuke one to reestablish native plants is exactly what you have to do. You're not going to leave a little bit of mugwort for the 2 or 3 sparrows that may be moving through during that time.
There's enough mugwort somewhere.
Yes, exactly. And we're talking about birds, right? We're under the lens of birds and critical habitat for birds and migration, essentially.
I'm going to interject an anecdote to agree with you, because you know what? Another company before, I don't know, maybe it was Andrew Pogon or whatever. Someone came in and did they broke up the concrete and planted natives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was part of the trail as a separate project.
I tell you what, you go in there as a birder, it's full of sparrows.
Yeah.
Because they planted natives that produce seeds
Yeah,
that they like.
exactly.
So,
a lot of them are nativars, but that's fine. They're producing native seeds that they're familiar with foraging for.
Yeah.
And I agree. One of the first things I did was looked at that, and I was impressed at the bird use. So we nuked the understory entirely. We amended soil, and we established planting zones. We added structure. There were no shrubs. There was no shrub layer whatsoever out there. We planted some amelanchiers, planted some understory trees and some shrubs, some viburnums and amelanchier and some other good.
And you guys bolted down the logs. Damn it.
We had to.
I imagine you did. I
know.
I'm like, I gotta flip. Crap! It's bolted down.
Yeah, they're bolted down.
so for the light people, Adam Lake here is serviceberry and
Sorry, go on with it.
These are good points here. We did. This is the bolted log thing is a segue. My company does ecological restoration, and sometimes in the wildest of spaces. Where there's the only intended users are native fauna,
Right?
And
When you
floral
people.
diversity.
Yeah.
This is an urban park, and this is a test plot. This whole project is essentially an active it's litmus test to see if these projects, if the redevelopment of these piers is something that the DRDC wants to commit in, if the city wants to invest in, and so they want to see how people are using these, and they want to see a win-win. Right. They want to see active use by humans, but also active value for wildlife.
Yeah.
So it's a smaller pier too, might I add.
There's one that's big coal pier north, north of the casino.
Yeah.
It's freaking huge.
Yeah.
Like kids are down there
up in Port Richmond.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to. I spent time up there when I was young.
Yeah.
This is a bit of an outlier for us. I mean, we do city parks and stuff, but our driver is ecological restoration. Usually with we're managing land for Carter blue butterfly, federally threatened species.
Yeah.
Things like that typically are more in our wheelhouse. So this one was this mix. So you can't roll a log because they're bolted to the ground because we want a whole bunch of people from the city. We know folks from the city are going to use it no matter what.
So you got to bullshit down.
Yeah, and the user base has been strong.
And I was out there on a crappy rainy morning on a Monday because I was going by before I went to work on my way to work.
Yeah,
and it was drizzling, and I was out there, but a couple people were walking their dogs out there too.
Yeah.
So people are using it. Yeah,
we see families laying out blankets in the little the areas where the path gets a little wider.
That's awesome.
So one of the biggest issues there is keeping people on the path.
Yeah,
because it is such a small space.
I know. I felt I was but I want to find a skink.
Right.
I gotta.
So
I
you
can't,
saw
I can't
the
get
area,
off the path, but I gotta look.
So now let's go back to the whole conversation about speculation and science. We talked about this because I felt it was important for both of you guys to know that skinks were being found out there.
Yeah.
I have to question because I've spent some time out there. I know other naturalists that have spent time out there, and nobody's ever seen a skink before. And then we put, a couple thousand plants in, right? So I'm still excited and optimistic for a number of reasons. When did
you do the plantings?
Well, the plantings started probably fall of last year.
But that's not enough to get a whole bunch established there, is it?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe the plantings on the mainland.
What's the probability that people were seeing the same two skinks? It's pretty low, right?
But what about so you also had other plantings, just to introduce another variable here. You had other plantings not on the pier from a couple of years earlier, right? Along the right. So
from a different ecological restoration.
Washington Avenue Green project. So still root balls, plants coming in from somewhere in Jersey or Delaware or upstate PA or something like that.
Right.
And then I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. So
I was saddened when I thought about this.
I know.
It was but that's science for you, right? You can't romanticize.
So if we have two hypotheses here, that one is that skinks have persisted on these piers all these years, and then the other is that maybe they hitched a ride on the plantings.
But so two things here. So I talked with the contracting supervisor for our company.
Yeah.
It's his crew that planted all these plants. And I said, "What were your plant sources?" And Delaware. A lot of them are from Delaware, and I was like, "Well, that's a skinky state."
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
And then there was something else that there was some equipment that staged in New Jersey for a while.
That'll work too.
Yeah. So, so here's the light at the end of the tunnel for us optimistic Philly naturalists. So now we have 5-line skinks that we know are on the site. Okay. And we also the site was managed for people primarily. However, there's a bunch of eco nerds. There's wildlife biologists, botanists, and then within the biologist realm we have birders and herpers and this and that. And we care greatly about this stuff, and we inform the designs. So I made sure that there was structural habitat left. We found brown snakes and garter snakes out there, and I knew that it was going to be impactful. And
there are probably, I'm sure I saw a garter snake not on the pier, but on one of the weedier areas off the pier. But
they're highly adapted. But we left that mulberry complex where there's like 3 mulberries coming out of the same area.
Yeah.
And there's rotted roots and stuff that go down. There's potential hibernaculums.
Sure.
And then there's a
hibernaculum is a place that is a hibernation den. But
yes.
good,
Yeah, it's a place where cold-blooded animals can overwinter without freezing.
Right.
And there was some coarse woody debris in there, but we had the guys add some more. So now that you got this, it's basically this big wood pile.
Back there,
And like, a more traditional design of a park for people, especially in a city. There's no way you're going to leave piles of wood like that. I mean, we intentionally left that to promote potential invertebrate presence.
Yeah, kids are going to be looking under it. Fishermen are going to be pulling worms out of there. Yeah.
But I'm hoping skinks could potentially overwinter there, and that's the thing. So even though they may come, and we won't know, especially if they don't stick around. If we don't find them anymore,
in 2 years they're
then
gone.
Then it's a high probability that it was the plants.
Well, but the other thing is, there are other piers right near there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be hitting them.
I'm definitely going to invest some time.
You got time to go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm definitely going to invest some time in. Plus, I want to bird the site this year and see what I'm very interested in the breeding birds we get on the pier versus the other ones.
Nice. All right, good stuff, guys.
Yeah, this Washington Pier Park, I was excited it was being featured on this episode because I discovered it. I thought I discovered it, like an individual discovery last fall, and it only opened, I think, in August of last year, correct, to the public?
I think so. Summer of last year, yeah.
The pier.
The pier itself?
Right, but the trail's been going a little bit longer.
Yeah,
Okay.
so to set the picture, there's along the waterfront in this part of the Delaware River, there's a bike path that runs down it, and then there are these piers that come out into the river from there. One of them has been rehabbed as the Washington. That's the Pier 53. Washington Avenue Green is a longer stretch along the base of these piers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the bike trail picks up along the river at Tasker, and you can ride up in like kind of a grassy area up to the pier, which is at Washington. And it's a really lovely area. I was really immediately drawn to it. It has really great signage if you're into that kind of thing, as I am. Just lovely design on the signs, but also beautiful native plantings. It has, for being a small park that just juts out into the water, it has really some enormous trees, just some really big ones that makes you kind of feel like you're entering like a sacred space in some ways. And there's several different places to sit along the water. And then at the end, there's the pier pilings where there's cormorants, double-crested, and you also said great cormorants come down in the winter. And swallows nesting there. I've seen some other cool birds. So, yeah, a great place to hang out. And the Skinks agree.
What I did after that episode, we recorded that in the winter, so I didn't really have a chance. Now it's the spring. And so I went back. We've gone back a couple times. The first time I went back, I brought my daughter, who we had to turn around because there was a little tantrum, which happens sometimes when you're hiking with a 3-year-old. And on the way back, as she was flopping on the ground, refusing to go any further, I noticed some skinks actually on a couple of trees that were like one pier over from Pier 53. Now, this was still adjacent to, or right next, it was right next to some plantings, well, not next to, like a stone's throw from some plantings from the Washington Avenue Green section at the base of the piers. But it was still kind of heartening to see some skinks that weren't right on that Pier 53. And they were just sitting on some Paulownia trees that get these cracks in the bark. So this is Paulownia. These are exotic, weedy trash trees, surrounded by Japanese knotweed. So like thoroughly invasive, crappy stuff. And the skinks were running over the base of these trees.
How many did you see, do you think?
2. I saw one running around, and then I looked closely at the bark of another, because I was bummed I didn't get a picture, and then I saw one hiding in a crack in the bark. I got a picture of that. Which I can post. We can post that you'll see it actually by now on our website. And then I went back earlier this week, and I decided to try further south. And this was the really depressing part, because I found the next few viable piers south were just swarming with feral cats, and people were out there feeding them. So we've got some really active feral cat colonies. And again, to establish our bona fides here, Tony actually is a cat person. Talk about Lola.
Yeah, I have a cat, Lola. I think we talked about it before.
Yeah, so
I have 2 cats.
Hannah's two cats. It's not that we hate cats. We just like cats indoors. And so when you have a feral cat colony like that, what they'll do is, they're being fed, but they'll also be out just because they're cats, killing stuff for kicks. And in this case, that might be skinks, and it might be some of these warblers and other sparrows, whatever other birds that we've got. I don't know warblers, but sparrows, whatever other birds we've got stopping over on migration. You don't want to have a few dozen or 100 cats hanging around there picking off birds on their way to Canada or on their way back down. So that's a little disheartening. I'll keep looking for skinks and stuff. I know Hannah will start looking for skinks now too, and see what she can spot. Any final thoughts on skinks and sugar maples?
Well, I think to tie back to the idea of who cares?
Yeah,
it's even if the skinks weren't from a relic population, because there should be skinks in our area. They were probably here before, but extricated with development. Even if they came back, if they recolonized, even if someone brought them and let them go. Yeah, it's kind of cool. They're here one way or another.
Yeah, I mean it's a piece of our sort of urban, or of our native wildlife that can exist in a somewhat urban setting, that is there. And so I think they're fun to watch. They're cool little animals. We were showing Hannah pictures of of juvenile skinks, which have bright blue tails, really neat looking animals. And so people can still look at them and be, learn from them and be fascinated by them, even if they hitched a ride from Delaware, or if they were there the whole time. So it's kind of a neat thing. No, it's fun. I hope they stick around.
Yeah, the thought that I would add is I think it ties, both these examples tie back to a lot of big conversations happening in conservation and ecology right now. For example, there's a lot of argument right now in the paleo community about whether wild horses were indigenous to America before they were reintroduced by Spaniards. And if there were once wild horses living in the Americas that then went extinct, and then Spaniards reintroduced wild horses,
right.
Do they belong here or not? And I think it's a similar question. Why do we value why do we say, how do we decide what belongs and what doesn't? Why do we always value kind of vestigial or old populations over new things? And
I thought you were going to mention rewilding there for a second.
Almost. I mean, it ties into that too.
So we're
even bigger.
unintentionally rewilding South Philly, which is a fun idea. We can think more about that. So great, thanks. And of course, don't forget to send your comments, questions, criticisms to feedback@urbanwildlifecast.com. We will do our best. Well, we're definitely going to read everything. We might not get a chance to respond to everything just with the number of... I'm sure we'll be getting just buckets and buckets of messages. But Hannah's stifling her laughter right now. But do write us. Give us ideas for future stories. Tell us what you think of this. Also, please follow us on Twitter @UrbWildlifeCast. Like us on Facebook. And, of course, if you're listening to this through a podcasting app and you like the show, please rate it and say you like it so that other people who are looking for wildlife and urban wildlife podcasts can find us. Thank you. For the record, I was only laughing because I was imagining physical buckets full of emails. Yes. It's an interesting... Mixed metaphors. That's fine. I'm fine with mixed metaphors. Me too. All right. Good.
So, three-horned warty back. They have these 3 horns, and they're gorgeous.
Would you say that
in general, mussels have some of the coolest names?
Was it a green Manalishi with a 3-pronged crown? That's that Fleetwood Mac song covered by Judas Priest.
I am sadly unfamiliar.
Okay.
I can't believe you need my love so bad.